Welcome to Wargaming Recon. I am your host, Jonathan J. Reinhardt. Wargaming Recon is the only member of the Troll in the Corner podcast network to discuss historical and New England gaming. This is episode 156, Why Wargamers Should Crowdfund Their Gaming. So first of all, I want to welcome all of you new and longtime listeners alike. That's right. No matter how new you are or how long you've been listening to the show, I hope that you will enjoy this episode of Wargaming Recon. And I want to also remind all of you that although I'll cover a variety of topics on this episode, you don't need to worry about remembering them all because you'll be able to get extra information and hear all the stuff that I talk about. You can get all that by going to the show notes. So you can get that at wargamingrecon.com/WR156. That's wargamingrecon.com/WR156. So as I said, this episode is devoted to why wargamers should crowdfund their gaming. And I know in the past I've talked about crowdsourcing and that sort of stuff. In particular, episode 118, I think it was, Kickstarter for Wargamers, where I kind of explained 5 of my tips that I use for how I choose what Kickstarter projects I want to back and how I can tell whether it's worth backing one of those Kickstarter projects. This episode is going to be different because first of all, I'm not really going to be talking about Kickstarter. I'll explain why in a minute, but I'm actually going to be taking it from the other side. So in that episode 118, I took it from the perspective of a backer, where you, me, whoever, we're looking when we want to see what is worth our time and our effort and our trust to back as a project. This episode, I want to take it and I want to flip the coin over. I want to put you and I in the driver's side where we are the creative ones. We're the ones who want to create that project, that campaign, and we're hoping other people will back it. So with that in mind, let's kind of dive into this. Now, you're thinking, okay, wait, so you're saying I play games every, once in 4 months or something, every now and again with friends, or a pickup game here and there, maybe. I could get people to pay me money for that. And well, maybe, but there's more to it than that. Nothing's ever as easy as it seems, right? At, at the most basic, yes, the possibility is there, but it really is contingent on a few things. So first of all, the reason why I'm not going to talk about Kickstarter is that Kickstarter is more intended for you have a certain thing that you're going to do or create or provide that special one thing that's going to happen. It has a defined beginning, a defined middle, and a defined end. And that's that. And it's done, it's over. And the next time you're going to have a defined thing to do, you do another Kickstarter project. So an example of this might be, say you're going to make your own home brew set of rules, and you want to then create those rules and you want to publish them and put them out in print, and you want to do PDF and all that kind of stuff, an ebook version and digital and everything, and then you want to sell that to people. You want to make it publicly available in the marketplace. In order to do that, you might run a Kickstarter project so that you can raise the capital for artwork and illustrations and layout and all that kind of stuff. What I'm actually talking about here is an ongoing basis of support where you're just always getting that continual funding. And so Kickstarter is not so great for that. I'm actually going to be talking about Patreon because that's what I use here at Wargaming Recon for the show. And also it helps with my gaming, which actually funnels into the show and things I talk about here. But you could do other things like Indiegogo, I think is kind of like an ongoing thing. And that there's no defined end. You can say what you're hoping to raise. So in that sense, it kind of is like a predetermined beginning and end, like Kickstarter. But Indiegogo, there's no benefits, no rewards. It's just, hey, I want $5,000. I need $400 for whatever. Who can help out? And that's that. And so it can run for any amount of time and people just contribute. Whereas Patreon is every month or every creation, and I'll get more into what these words mean, but every month or every creation, which you choose how to do it, people will automatically contribute to you X number of dollars, X number of pounds, X number of euros, whatever your denomination is of currency, that will happen. So That's why I'm talking about Patreon. Now, this, as I said, you could play games every so often and it could be helpful to you, but really this is most useful for those who have existing audience, a group of people who enjoy and like what they do. You're not likely to get a bunch of new supporters and new people supporting you and finding you and loving what you do by doing a Patreon campaign. If you are a blogger and you have like 500 people who look at your stuff every single time you put something out, you get a following. If you're a vlogger, if you do YouTube videos and you get 1,000 people looking at every new video, you're a podcaster, you get a couple hundred people listening to your every new episode of your show. You have a following. You have an audience. There's a community there of people who like what you do and who will probably support you if you so ask and if you make it easy for them to do. So this is really intended, like I said, for those with that audience, whether you're a blogger, you're a vlogger, you're a podcaster, but it also works even if you don't do those things, but if you have an audience, because maybe you're a really good GM, you're notable for that. You run amazing games always at certain conventions. Maybe you're part of a club that's really well known, that does a lot of really cool stuff. Like here in New England, there's many great wargaming clubs. But for example, I'm going to name the Boston Train Bands, Northern Conspiracy. This, I don't want to name all of them, but there's tons of great ones. But maybe you're part of one of these clubs. And in being part of one of these clubs, you've gotten this strong reputation. So the club or a leader of the club could do a Patreon campaign to kind of help with things and to make it something that's going to work really well for what you're doing. Again, you're going to have that audience, the group of supporters there. And then maybe you're just someone who's won a lot of rewards for different things. You've won things at maybe Gen Cons or Historicons or more local. You win certain awards at Havoc or Total Con. You're the INGM or whatever. If you have that, people can see that, and that can then be a way for you to kind of break in and use this. Now, even if you don't fit any of that criteria, I still think it's worth you listening because you could benefit. For all you know, maybe someone is willing to give you $1 every month. $1 might not sound like a lot, but $1 from someone else is one less dollar from you. And every dollar that you personally don't have to take out of your pocket helps you to do more and to go further and to create more cool stuff and do more wargaming. So that's very, very important to consider. Okay. Really, you may not be someone with 5,000 followers or some crazy number of people who is in your audience. You might have 5 people, right? But if one out of those 5 gives you $1 every month or $5 a month or $10 a month over the course of the year, that's a lot of money, right? Someone gives you $10 a month, you're looking at $120 a year. $120 can get you quite far in wargaming, a lot further than you might think, okay? So now with that in mind, let me talk about Patreon and why Patreon I think is a way to go. And I'll have a link later on in the episode, and it'll be in the show notes that you can use. You can click, and it'll help you get signed up with Patreon, and you can get some really cool stuff by doing that. So first of all, like I said, I use Patreon, and overall, I am very, very pleased with Patreon. It has its ups, it has its downs. They constantly evolve and constantly improving the service. The first thing I should say is that Patreon is easy to use. Whether you're the person creating this stuff, the wargamer looking for people to support this stuff, or whether you're the backer, the wargamer backing someone else, it's really easy to create your free account, to then share your content if you're the wargamer creating, if you're like me, or if you're the backer, to go and find projects to back and then say how much you want to give and all that kind of stuff. It's very easy to do. And overall, it's fairly intuitive. Some stuff, little tweaking is needed, but generally it's really easy to do. With that, for the creator side, and I'm going to refer to wargamers like you and I who are hoping to find backers, ones who are the bloggers, the vloggers, the podcasters. I'm going to refer to us as the creators, and that we are the content creators. We're the ones doing the wargaming, maybe writing battle reps, doing videos of that, blogging about our progress, blogging about what we paint, running the games. We're creating the stuff that other people enjoy. So I'm referring to us as creators. So I'll use that term throughout this episode, okay? And I try not to bog down episodes with different terms that people might not be familiar with, or I may not have used them in that way before on an episode. But it's easier to kind of get used to that because that's the terminology that Patreon uses, and a lot of other crowdfunding platforms also use creator and backer. Patreon uses creator and patron. I like to use creator and backer because patron is a little close to Patreon, so I get why they used it. But it can be confusing because you might think, wait, did he say patron or Patreon? Did he say Patreon or patron? Backer is just easy. It's someone who supports. You could say supporter if you wanted, but I like creator for those who are creating the content, creating the stuff, who are doing, and backer for those who are supporting and are enabling the creator to do. So, as a creator, uh, you're thinking, okay, I want to get money. Do I get all of the money? Do I get some of the money? How does it work? For me, Patreon takes a tiny percentage, and they do this for everyone. They take a tiny percentage of all the money that comes in, and you get the rest. I get between 90 and 91% of the money that is contributed, of the money that backers give to me. So if I get $10, I get $9.10 out of that. That means Patreon takes just 90 cents or 89 cents. And that's what they use for their stuff. There's a small fee for how you get the money paid out. Does it go through PayPal? Do you get paid via Stripe, which is a credit card processing people? I use PayPal. So PayPal takes a small percentage, and depends on your PayPal account type, whether or not what percentage the PayPal takes, but a small percentage. And then I get it shunted into my bank account because I have a bank account set up just for my podcast, just for Wargaming Recon, which also covers my gaming. Because again, for me, wargaming feeds into Wargaming Recon. So when I go and play games with my buddies, right? If I'm going to a convention, if I'm doing a pickup game somewhere, chances are I'm going to be able to then talk about it at some point on the show. So then that comes into that. And if I'm buying stuff that I'm going to wargame with, I will end up talking about that stuff most likely on the show. So it comes out of that money. So Patreon is helping to fund my wargaming in addition and as part of the greater umbrella of Wargaming Recon, the show here that you're listening to. It would work the same way for you. So I'm going to give some examples near the end of the show of different actual people I know who listen to the show, people who've been on the show, people who've contributed in ways to the show, of how I feel that it could benefit them to do a Patreon campaign. But for me, like I said, 90 to 91% of the money that comes into me, and I get to keep. If I got $100, I'd get, that's right, 90 to $91 out of it. And Patreon would get, the the 9 to 10 bucks out of that. Um, I kind of alluded to this a little bit beforehand, but Patreon makes it a breeze, really, a breeze for you to share your content. So let's say that you are a blogger, right? And you're a wargamer who blogs what they do. You paint your minis, and you want to share updates about what you're painting. You have this whole unit of American War of Independence militiamen that you're going to paint, right? So you talk about, oh, I made some progress today. You take maybe a couple photos and you do a blog post on your blog. You can then take that and you post it onto Patreon. It's WYSIWYG, which means what you see is what you get. It's the same kind of setup that you used to if you use WordPress or if you use Blogger, Blogspot, any of those, very similar. It'd be just like doing a Facebook post almost. You just type in, or you could copy and paste. You can paste in images. You can do hyperlinks. You can do all this stuff. It's very simple to do. You give it a title. You can even attach files. You can attach music. You can attach video. You can attach images. I attach podcast episodes to it. So that's a way that I give my podcast episodes to my Patreon supporters, to my Patreon backers. You, as a blogger who war games, you could put an attachment of maybe a color scheme that you're thinking of doing, or your unit. You taking a unit photo. It shows where you are at that time. You put that in, you put it up, and it goes out to your backers. And depending on how you have your Patreon campaign set up, which I'll get to in a minute. You'll either get paid for that posting if you so choose, or you get all the contributions once a month. So let's talk about that right now, okay? Um, you need to be careful in how you determine that you want to be how you want to receive rather the money that's coming. And I don't mean so much like, do you want it to go to PayPal? Do you want it to go to somewhere else? I mean, do you want to be supported on a monthly basis or on a per post basis? They use a per creation is what they call, but per post. And they give some guidelines on there. But I'm going to tell you, I think the best way to do it is per month. So you could be someone who does like 10 YouTube videos a month, right? And you're thinking, I put a lot of work into this and I want every YouTube video to get paid for by that. The problem with a per creation, a per video, a per blog post, a per I don't know game setup, uh, a per creation, a per whatever kind of thing like that, is that for a backer, the backer doesn't know really any sort of estimate of what it's going to cost them each month. And most backers, they're going to want to know on a monthly basis because then they can figure out weekly and that then they can tell how much it's going to come out of their paycheck every week. Some people get paid every 2 weeks or once a month, but they can be able to figure that out. If it's a per creation, they don't know how many videos you're going to release on YouTube this month. Yeah, maybe last month you did 2. This month you could do 10. Or you could do 1. And that makes it really hard for people to just kind of budget for that. So when I started out with Patreon, I thought, okay, I'm going to do per creation because based on the guidelines, I said I have new episodes come out roughly every 2 weeks. And so because of that, I don't want people to get to be charged more for a month if I only do 1 episode. Because some months, maybe I get sick and I'm only releasing 1 episode. Other month, maybe I'm doing 3. Just depends how many weeks are in the month and how things are going. So I started that out, and then I realized, well, that's not so great, right? Because it's not fair to my backers. They don't know what to expect. They know, right, that I'm most likely going to have a new episode every other week. That's how I try to do. It doesn't always work out, but that's what I try to do. But what if there's a third one? What if there's under, right? If it's under, it's not so bad because it saves you some money. But if there's more, you're paying more than what you were thinking maybe. So that's not so cool. And then also for me as a creator, or as for you as a creator, you like to know how much is coming in each month, right? Um, yeah, you could say the per creation, it kind of encourages you to create and put your stuff up on Patreon if you wouldn't otherwise. But I think if you're really wanna be true to giving more than what you get, and I think that's what we should all consider. Yeah, we're doing this. You could do this because you're a war gamer and you want to help fund your hobby, but also you have to realize you have that responsibility to your backers, responsibility to give something of value to them. And I always strongly believe, maybe it's a Christian thing, I don't know. I think it's just a good person thing in general. But I am a firm believer in giving more than I'm getting. So if you give me a dollar contribution, I want to make sure I'm giving you like $3 worth of content, $5 worth of content. I want to give you so much more than what you're giving because I want to make sure that you feel that you have value for what you're contributing. So if you have that mindset, then you don't need to worry about the uh, being held accountable to put out X number of web videos or X number of blog posts or whatever. You just know that you're gonna get your contributions. Your support is giving you the money, certain amount every month, and that's great. And if some months you do a lot more than other months, that's okay. But you shouldn't really dip too far below. And I thought a lot about this because I was like, it's not fair, like I said, and I want to really promote transparency here. So I asked my backers what they thought, and I told them what I was thinking, and ultimately made the decision to switch to that per monthly setup, and that caused problems actually. As part of that, my backer levels, which I'll get into in a little bit, uh, although I made changes to them, the changes didn't actually take effect for backers because I had people supporting me at set levels, like at a $5 level. And that was $5, say, per episode. But then when I changed it to per monthly, it was like $9, say, per month. So instead of $10 a month, they actually saving $1, but they were still only paying, like $5 an episode. And since it was a per month basis, that meant they were paying $5 per month, not the 9 and not the 10 that they would have. So they were getting a great deal, which, I mean, I don't begrudge them that, but they agreed to and they wanted to support me at this level. And they knew that the change was coming and they were okay with it. So I was like, why isn't this happening? Well, the way Patreon is set up, if you have people already in a backer level, in a predetermined reward level that you created, and you make the change from that creation to the per month setup, and you change how much that level is going to be, if it's going to go from 5 to 9, or it's going to go from like 9 to 5, it doesn't change for the person. So that person supporting you is still supporting you at that old level, and that's not right. That's something I think Patreon needs to change. But right now they can't and they don't. So it's a huge problem. So you really have to make sure that you get this right to begin with. So think about it. If you need to take an extra day or two before you set up your campaign and promote it and get your Patreon thing going, that's fine. You use that time. Think, is it really going to benefit me more to have people pay it for every time I put a blog post up on Patreon, for every time I release a YouTube video? Or is it actually better for me to just do this per monthly thing so that every month people know this is what they're going to give? I think you will find that the monthly basis is the best way to go. I really do think. Now, unless you're not going to create something new except like one every 2 months, one every 3 months, then that's different. But if you're going to do multiple things every month, I still think you're better off having people back you and support you on that monthly level. Like I said, the backers will know to expect, oh, wait, this is a $1 reward level. That means every month I'm giving $1, not, well, maybe this month I'm giving $8 because they put 8 things out. Next month I'm giving $40 because they put 40 things out. And this month I'm doing $2 because they only put 2 things out. It's very confusing, hard to keep track for everyone. Just don't do it. Trust me. Learn from my mistakes, because this has caused some problems for my Patreon backers, caused some problems for me. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the Patreon segment, just because I have a notice that to give to my own Patreon backers, just to kind of remind them about some stuff. So that's there. And like I said, just give it some thought. I know I'm hammering away about this, but seriously, think about it, because if you do it the wrong way, you can fix it eventually, but it's a headache. And it becomes more of a headache and a bigger problem the more backers you have. Even if you only have one backer, it's still a problem. It's still a headache. So just get it right to begin with, please. Another thing that you should keep in mind with Patreon that's really cool is they allow you to create publicly visible goals. And these are predetermined dollar amounts. And I think that it's very important to have clearly defined preset goals. Your audience can see those. It helps them to know what it is that you want to do, what you need to do, and it encourages them to support you. So that, let's say you're the blogger again, and you have a few hundred people looking at every blog post. In your blog post, you could say, oh, by the way, I got this goal on Patreon. If we reach $10 for backers, I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. And backers can say, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm going to back you and help you to reach that goal. Again, using me as an example, and I know it might sound like a little self-serving that I keep on referring to me here, but I had the experience with Patreon, and so I'm trying to share that experience to help you so that you can use my experience. And if you choose to do Patreon and do crowdfunding, you can take things that you like from what I've done with Patreon, discard the things that you don't, but maybe you'll be able to avoid some of the pitfalls that I have fallen into. So there's a bunch of different reward levels that I have, and I'm just actually pulling them up right now for all you guys so I can show it with you. So for my goals, I have a variety of price points, but they start off at $5 goal, right? So my first goal, which was $5, was if I got $5 in contributions from backers per month, I'd be able to get a live stream backup for the live recordings that I do on Google Hangouts. I had another one further up for $21 was a goal that then I get to get a service that helps me to automate the editing process. And then there are some that were pay for web hosting that would help me to get more equipment, better equipment, $59 a month and so forth. You pick the goals, be creative in what you name them and what the descriptions are, but also be clear in what they are for. Don't call something the gas goal, right? And people might think that's to help you pay for gas to get to stuff, when really that goal is to help you buy a new game that's coming out. You really want to get into Hill Caesar, and the goal is if you get that, then you're going to buy the rulebook and the armies and stuff, and you'll play the game and so forth. Be clear in what your goals, and make sure that it's easy for your potential backers and for your backers to understand what they are. In line with this, and I talked about a little bit before, transparency. Transparency is very, very important. So there's a few ways to look at this. The first is, and it might seem counterintuitive actually, is that when you put stuff on Patreon, as much as possible, make it visible to the public. And that's a setting that you can choose when you're creating your Patreon post. You go in and you can choose like who can see this, and I think they say like everyone in the world, and then it breaks it down either all your backers or by the different backer levels that you've set. The reason why you want more instead of less that's visible to the public is you're hoping to lure in potential backers. So yeah, you got your audience maybe of people, and they're supporting you hopefully, but you want to get more, right? Because you want to be able to do more. If someone comes across your Patreon campaign page and they're looking at that page and they don't see anything, they just see it's all private, they're not going to know what you're doing. They're not going to be able to see if it's something they want to support. But if you make it publicly available, they can see your blog post. They can see your YouTube video that you put on Patreon. They can listen to your podcast episode and they can say, oh, wait, I like what's being done here. I'm going to support it. But if you restrict it all behind that paywall, limit it to only your Patreon backers, even if your stuff is freely available elsewhere, it's not going to work, because a lot of people just surf on Patreon. They use it kind of like a social media site. They look for people and for things that they want to support. They're not going to go and then make that jump and look at another website in the hopes that they might find you. No, they're going to look at Patreon. And if they find you, great. If they don't, they don't. And you lost out. Make it as much as possible visible to the public. And this is something I don't do, which I'm changing. Because for me, I release episodes to Patreon backers first. And so because of that, I limit it to them. What I'm going to be doing is I will also be making it available to the public, so that it goes out to my backers first. But then when the episodes go public, I'm going to have it also appear on Patreon for the public to see. So it'll show twice, but people will publicly see it, and then also will have been available to the backers first, which is a promise I've made to them. So that is very important. Those are really just some of my general guidelines for Patreon. I will say, when it comes to rewards, I think it's important to have rewards for your backers. I really do. I'm not going to talk about them in and of themselves. I want to jump to using some of those people I mentioned earlier in the episode, and use them as examples of why I think a crowdfunding campaign would be good for them, and the sort of rewards that they could give to people. So instead of just talking in generalities about like this would be helpful to do, or do this or do that, or don't do this, maybe by having these examples, it'll be more profound and speak louder. It's just something that I think might be useful. So let's go to my first example. I'm going to use Mike Payne as an example. He's been a guest on the show a few times. I've talked about him a lot, actually, over the past couple of years. He is an amazing game master. Whenever I go to a convention or a game day, I look for his name in the listing to see if he's running anything, and I sign up for it. He is one person who you always have to sign up for their events because you will regret it if you don't. They are some of the most fun, incredible, and enjoyable games I've ever played. And I played things that he's run that I would never play otherwise, but I've loved every minute of it. So he's a great game master. He's known to be a great game master. He's been doing it for a long time. He has a following of dedicated players who see his name and play in his stuff. He could benefit from having a Patreon campaign. So for him, he would set up goals so that he would have to figure out how much it costs him to upgrade his terrain. In a recent appearance here on Wargaming Recon, he talked about using blue felt for water, for example, for his tables, and green felt for land and some other stuff. And that, it just fine. It's what I use at home. Uh, but when you're at a convention, maybe you want to spruce it up a little bit. Maybe he could use a little financial boost to help make that possible, because to get much cooler looking surfaces or effects and features, it's not cheap, right? He makes a lot of things his own, but even to get the materials, it costs money. So he could determine how much it would cost to upgrade that terrain, to make the stuff, to get the supplies, or to buy whatever. And then he could set that as a goal. So he could say, if it's going to cost him $60, he puts the goal $60, I upgrade the whatever. He upgrades it. Or he has a very loose set of rules, which is great, but maybe he wants to formalize them, or maybe he wants to get them written down and printed or make them look nice or whatever. That could be another goal. Or he recently talked about needing to paint up a lot of Japanese models, soldiers for a game. He could have had a goal that would, if he reached a certain price point, the goal would be that he would then be able to get the models, to get them painted maybe, so that he wouldn't have to do all the painting. Wargamers, just like you and me, could see what he's doing and think, oh, Mike, I know him. He's great. I love his games. I want to support him. I want to help. And then what he would do is he would go to his Patreon page and he'd write a post. And he could treat it like his own private blog, really. He'd write a post and just talk about his progress. Today, I sculpted a new skull mountain to replace the other one because it got damaged last time. Some kids were a little rough with it, but that's what happens. It's okay. I don't mind. Uh, it's all about the kids. We want to get them to have fun. And, I'm bringing stuff to conventions and I know it's going to get knocked around a bit, but I have to work on it. Here's a couple photos. He loves to take photos, right? So here's a couple photos. Here's what I'm doing. Look at it and da da da. He could show his finished pieces. He could do results from some games that he's run at cons. Oh, the other day I was at Havoc and I ran this game, and it was really cool. And there's this one player who did this, blah blah blah, and write it up and put it on. He could give sneak peeks of some upcoming games. He could allow backers a say in what direction to take. Now, this could be a reward level, right? Rewards are different than goals. Goals are if a certain amount of money is raised on a continual basis, then the creator does something. The reward is a backer. Say, I want to be Mike's backer, and I would be his backer if he had a Patreon campaign. I want to be his backer, and I say, I can give you $5 a month. So for that $5, maybe Mike says, to entice me to choose that, he's going to give me something really cool. He's going to allow me access. He's going to allow me the opportunity to share ideas with them for maybe some cool rule ideas, some tricks, a new way to handle something, or a special artifact for one of his games. Maybe he would allow something to be named after me, a unit, a ship, a model, something. Um, Maybe he would allow me to play games with them. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Another person who I think would benefit greatly from this is Adam Carrier. Adam has a Fence and Frog blog. I've mentioned the blog before on the show. He has a lot of dedicated people following him on there. He is someone who games more than anyone I know. He paints more than anyone I know, and he documents it all. So whenever he's playing a game, he takes tons of photos, and he writes up a bat rep. He puts a battle report on his blog, the Fence and Frog blog. He has photos of it. He talks about what he does. Whatever game he's going to play, he assembles and paints everything. He loves to paint. He loves to assemble. He gets a lot of joy from it. He takes photos of what he's painting. He puts it up on his blog. He puts it up on his Facebook. He puts it up all over the place. He could put it up on a Patreon campaign, right? He's a blogger with a lot of activity, and a lot of people on there. His readers could find out that he has this Patreon campaign and then support him financially. So would a be able to be transformed from passively just reading what he does on his blog to actively being involved and supporting him. Um, that would allow him to do so much more of what he already does. He could try other things. He could do more with his blog. And since he has a dedicated following, he could say thank backers by name on the blog. Each blog posting for the month could say, I'm thanking my Patreon backers, and thank each of them by name and list them all at the end of each posting or on a special section of the blog page that he has. They could all just be listed there. He could, like I said, name a unit after a backer. He's going to paint up a new unit for, he has his Imaginations army and country. Maybe he's going to name a unit leader after someone. You back Adam's Patreon campaign for, say, $15 a month, and you get this unit leader named after you. You get a whole unit named after you. It's Jonathan's Rangers, right? It's named after you. That's cool, right? And then he would refer to that unit as Jonathan's Rangers and his bat reps, so that when everyone goes and looks at the Fence and Frog blog and they see his postings, they can see, oh wait, he's painting up a unit and it's called Jonathan's Rangers. He played with Jonathan's Rangers and they were in this game, and oh, they did really cool, and oh, that's really cool. How do I get to do this? He could have a higher level. Say if you give like $25 a month, that once a month he'll play a game with you. If you live in the area, you work it out, you schedule it, you got to get yourself to where the pre-agreed upon place, and you guys play a game together. And then, of course, he would take photos and write it up on the blog. So he's gaming, you're supporting it, you get to interact, you get to do cool stuff, and then you also get mentioned in things, so it's really cool, right? It's neat. Someone else, and this is kind of different because in a way he's a bit of a special case because he's a big name, is Henry Hyde, right? Henry Hyde's been on the show, not enough for my liking, but lots of times, right? He has a huge following. He published that Wargaming Compendium, which I think is one of the most important wargaming books to be released in my lifetime. I really do. It's done so well. It's a bestseller on Amazon. Pen and Sword loves how good it's doing there. His publishers, he's doing a lot of independent stuff, independent projects. He has a lot of blogs, right? But Henry's Wargaming, he's prolific there. It's Henry's Wargaming Journal. He could do a Patreon campaign, right? He has the audience. I would support Henry. I'd support all these people that I mentioned. He could do special rewards here, right? Where in his books, he could thank you by name, right? He could have a little section at the back with thanks to my Patreon backers for the kind support. Bam! List all the names. 5 pages of names. Bam! Listed all the names, right, in the book. And everyone who buys a copy of the book sees your name in there, sees my name in there, sees your buddy's name in there, sees that you supported Henry, and they think, maybe I want to support Henry. And then they get their name in the next one. And then their buddy sees, you see what I'm saying, right? He could also do some other cool things where maybe he could allow backers to submit photos of their models so that their photos of their models could appear in future books. He could mention them on his blog or on social media. Like I said, Henry's Wargaming Journal, he's prolific there. You could get mentioned in there. Mentioned on his Facebook. Those would be rewards that you get for backer levels, right? Not goals. These are things that you would get if you give $1, if you give $5, if you give 20, if you give 50, whatever. He would determine the values. You could determine the values. These are examples, right? So if you're someone with an audience like Henry, you're doing the kind of things similar to what Henry's doing, you could do these sort of things. If you're the blogger like Adam, you could do those sort of things, right? If you're the game master like Mike, again, you could do those sort of things. I'm going to give you an example of a vlogger who already is doing something like this. It's tabletopbattle.com. They raise over $800 a month. And what they do is they create videos of the wargaming and do video battle reports on YouTube. They get hundreds of wargamers and hundreds of people viewing their videos when they release them. They release videos first to their backers, and then eventually they get released afterwards. Backers get discounts, and tabletop battle.com is supported. I think they still are actually, but by Warlord Games, and so you get discounts on Warlord and all sorts of stuff. It's very, very cool. Their videos are amazing, and the people there just wonderful guys. They're going to be in the miniature wargaming movie that Joe Piddington, who was on the show, he's going to go and interview them, have them on, and they gave a very kind, generous contribution to Wargaming Recon last year for the Extra Life 24-hour Gameathon to benefit Boston Children's Hospital. Just really cool. They are a perfect example of how you can do this well, right? And you don't have to give like a lot of physical rewards. Like I give physical rewards as much as possible to my backers. I have things like the Wargaming Recon branded measuring tape, the postcards I mail out, and that sort of stuff, the T-shirts and whatever. But you don't have to do that. You can do intangible rewards where people are thanked by name. I thank people by name in episodes of the show, on your blog, in your vlog. You could thank people in the books you write or whatever. That's a big one. A lot of people name things. There's all sorts of different cool things that you can do, right? So those are just some of the examples for that. That's what I have for that. This episode's actually going to be a little bit shorter. I have a couple more segments to do. But this episode is going to be a little bit shorter than most. I'm actually recording this the day before it releases, which is not something I normally do. But the reason is I came down with a stomach bug this weekend, and this is really the first matter of hours where I'm doing better. And on our Facebook page, I said, I'm sick. I'm not going to release anything. I'm sorry. Maybe if I can, I'll try to get an audio blurb up into the podcast feed just saying, sorry, no episode. I'm sick, but don't count on that. Well, I'm feeling well enough that I can get this out, but still, you wouldn't think sitting talking into a microphone can be exhausting, but it is. Between that little one and doing stuff and just trying to make sure I'm well enough for work in the morning, it's hard. It doesn't seem like it should be. It is. It is. A lot of prep went into this. It may not seem like it, but a lot of prep went into this episode. Something I've wanted to do for a little while. So there's that. And my voice is all scratchy, and not to gross everyone out, but that stomach bug, like, stuff comes out of you, right? Every which way you can imagine it. And it's gross. And it weirds you out. It began last night for me, that Saturday evening. And so I didn't get a whole lot of rest, I'll tell you. But I wanted to make sure that I got this out and got it recorded for everyone. So it's interesting. Now for mailbag, which I often say is one of my favorite sections of the show, and it is, I'm actually not sharing any listener feedback. What I'm going to do is I want to share something weird that's going on with the Facebook page. And weird in that I don't quite know why or how it's happening, but I think it could be really good, maybe. So looking at our Facebook page, we have a lot of activity happening. So for this week, we've reached almost 197,000 people. That's 197,000 people. Just under 16,000 people have been engaged, which means they've liked posts, they've shared them, or they've commented on them. They've reacted to them somehow. They've engaged with them. They've done something. They haven't just passively looked at it. That reaches people who've passively looked at it. They may have liked it. They may be like, oh, cool. But they may not have actually clicked the like button or shared it or whatever. And the number of people who like the Facebook page this week has gone up by 304 and counting. 304 new people like the Facebook page. Weird. Now, I can tell you it's primarily because of two things that I've posted. And I can't explain why these two specific things have been so popular. I think they're cool. I'm surprised by things. So one thing I posted on March 31st was a video that I had seen elsewhere. I did not create the video. I'm not taking credit for the video, but it's a video I saw elsewhere that is basically an infographic made into video form on the formation of an early imperial ancient Roman army. Um, how many men are in a cohort, and what's a century, and how they're aligned, and the different ranks, and who's in charge, and all that kind of stuff with the names and everything. It's very easy to follow. It's very cool. I'd suggest you look at it. It's on the Facebook page. And like I said, it tells you this makes up a cohort, this makes up a legion, this is what's that. Really easy to see. And for anyone who's into ancient wargaming or into Hail Caesar, I think this is a godsend, because I tell you, I've looked at a lot of books on ancient Roman military, and they don't clearly define it in this way. Now, maybe it's just because I'm a different kind of learner, but for this sort of information, for me, it's best if I have it visually laid out so that it's easy to see and understand. And at best, you get like kind of a weird sketch that doesn't really define or label everything. And you're like, what is this? And what's that? And just, it's confusing, right? This video does a great job. So for this video that I posted on March 31st, I posted it in the morning, 8:20 in the morning. Like I said, this video, it was weird because I posted it and I thought, oh, maybe a few people would look at it, and we'll just see how it goes, and maybe like 10 people will like it or something. And I was surprised because almost 25,000 people watched the video, some part of it. 25,000 people. Over 86,000 people were reached by the post. So what that means is the post went out to people's feeds. You have a Facebook, right? And you see it scroll by and end up in your thing. You looked at it. You may not have sat and watched any of the video, but you saw the post and you thought, oh, interesting. Over 86,000 people saw this. 1,000, right? And like I said, almost 25,000 people watched it. Over 1,500 people clicked the little like button. Over 250 people left a comment. Over 200 people shared it. Rather, left comments on the shares. Over 600 people shared it with their friends. Over 600 people shared it with friends. I was surprised. On the post itself on our Facebook page, there were 16 comments and 613 shares. And then, of course, of that, people then share it who already shared it. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. It's blowing up. Things don't blow up like that on Wargaming Recon. Not in a good way, right? So that's crazy. And I was like, oh, who knows? That's a weird thing. I don't know why it's happening in like ancient Rome of all things. I mean, I love ancient Rome. Don't get me wrong. But it's not a cat photo. It's not an internet meme. Those are things that go like, woo. And I guess in the scheme of the internet, this isn't really viral. But for me, viral, right? It's like, whoa, look how many people are seeing this. What the heck? So then I shared some other stuff. And I was like, well, maybe if more people are liking the page and seeing this, maybe they'll see other stuff I put on the page. So then I tried to do something that's actually a good practice that I just don't do often, which is resharing older content. So, for example, I put a post up on the Facebook page, and I said, "Did you hear this?" And it was Mike Payne's appearance where he talked about how to run a convention game. So I put that up and some other stuff, and then I came across another video a few days later. So April 7th, I put up a short video of some ancient Roman reenactors from World War One. It's a very short video. I don't think there's any sound. It's black and white. I thought the video was pretty cool. It's another video I found somewhere. I didn't make it. I don't have any control. I didn't do anything with it. It's just, I was like, this is cool. And I shared it. April 7th, I shared it. 8:20 at night. That has reached almost 194,000 people. 194,000 people. I was like, what? And of that, almost 64,000 people have watched the video. It's a short video, still. 64,000 people watch it, and like 194,000 people had been reached. Almost 4,000 people clicked the like button, said they liked it, they thought it was cool. Over 1,000 people shared it. Over 340 comments. Nuts. So by in of itself, what does this mean? I don't know. I don't know why or how these videos are so popular. Again, these two ancient realms, so maybe there's something there. I don't know what's going on, but people are sharing it, and people all over the world, because people leaving comments in languages I don't even know what they are. Some I can identify, maybe Swiss, maybe Dutch. There might be some Italian in there, some Spanish, German. I don't know. Just a lot of languages, a lot of people commenting and putting friends' names like, hey, look at this. And it's cool to see. Now, why I'm sharing all this with you is not just be like, hey, look at all the cool stuff that's going on. But it's because I'm hoping that this will translate into more people listening to the show. And you might think, well, how? So what I do is I share episodes on the Facebook page. Whenever a new episode comes out, and if you didn't know, I put a post on the day it comes out on Facebook, and I say, hey, here's this episode. It's about blah, 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 blah. And I give a link. Listen, link. You click on the link, you can get the episode. It takes them to the page with the show notes, but you can get it. You can listen there. You can download and subscribe, whatever. So I'm hoping that more people will see that and then make the transition. Currently, when I do that, I also share that information, that post, with other Facebook groups that are of interest or that have given me permission, other wargaming groups. And so that ends up giving about 1,000 to 2,000 people on Facebook who see that kind of post, and end up with, I think, 1,000 to 1,300 on average listeners per episode, somewhere around there. It changes, as time goes on, but I think that's the average. I'd have to look at the stats again, but I think that's what the average is roughly. So I'm hoping that this episode, actually, that you're listening to, this is going to be the first one that I'll release after all this is happening. And I'm hoping there'll be a transition that'll give a boost in listeners, and that maybe enough of them will stay and check out other episodes and think, oh, this is cool, and then become longtime listeners of the show. That's what I'm hoping. That's not my expectation. It's my hope, though. My expectation is, because this is not a bunch of cat videos or cat pictures or internet memes, people are seeing these videos and they think, oh, that's cool, and they're sharing it. And so they're excited by the video. And it's not necessarily translating to people liking the page and liking what's happening at Wargaming Recon. Because I think there's a lot of jumps from seeing the video, liking it, then liking the page, interacting with the page, and then jumping to listening to the episode and so forth. That's a lot of barriers, right? A lot of steps removed. So I don't know, but it's my hope. Not my expectation, but my hope. So we'll see. So that's the mailbag section of the show. Just lots of crazy stuff happening on Facebook. And I got to just remind people, it's very important to use their social media because, like I said, I've been sick this weekend. Stomach bug, stomach flu, sometimes it's called by. And I put the notice up on Facebook saying, sorry, no episode. I'm sick. That's what it's going to be like. And that's where I put stuff. So, and there I use Twitter as well. But really, Twitter's when I'm at events. And that's when I use it. Facebook is I'm on all the time. So that's where the stuff goes. So you wouldn't have known, right? Unless you use Facebook. So you really need to use our Facebook page. Just a couple other things. I think I briefly mentioned last time that I got the cool Aurelian unit tiles, they call them, but they're basically unit cards. Going to be using them with Hail Caesar. Mine arrived. My buddy Adrian ordered some via drive-through cards. I'll have a link somewhere. And he got his. So once we can get together, we'll try to play Hail Caesar with these things. So that should be cool. And then I want to remind everyone about the sponsor for the show. The very kind people over at MHWA sponsor the show, and they're the people who put on Huzzah. I will be at Huzzah May 13th through the 16th, 2016. I'm going to be doing a live recording, and I can announce that my buddy Adrian Benson will be a guest again on the show at Huzzah. He was a guest last year, and we talked about the cool stuff that we did at Huzzah and the games we played and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be doing that again, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're going to Huzzah, please pop by. We're going to be that Sunday morning. I think it's at 10 a.m. It's going to be an hour, maybe a little bit under. But we'll be I don't know, in a room on the side, I think. There'll be some chairs. Uh, should be fun to see. You actually be able to see us do the show. Be a little different, and it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. And then I need to thank my kind backers on Patreon because honestly, without them, of course, without the sponsor too, the people at MHWA, but without my Patreon backers, the show wouldn't exist. They helped me to crowdfund my wargaming, right? Yeah. So I want to thank Patrick. I want to thank Dave in the War Games at Battleshades Facebook group. And I want to thank Chris Parker. I also want to remind all my backers about something that I talked about at the beginning of this episode, where I talked about being careful about how you set up your Patreon campaign. Please make sure if you are a backer on Patreon that you make sure that you're in the correct reward level and that your pledge is attached to the correct one. If you're in a no reward level, that means you're not going to be getting rewards. I know you're intending to, but as time moves on, I'm not going to remember who's supposed to be where, who's supposed to be what. You have to make sure you're in the right levels, okay? So just make sure you're pledging the right amount, you're in the right levels. If you have any questions, please ask me. I'm happy to help as much as I can. And if I can't, then the people at Patreon can take care of it. But moving forward, I'm going to take things at face value for what it says there. So that might mean there might be some changes for stuff. But just make sure you're in the right things. Like I said, if you have any questions, you're unsure about stuff, let me know. You guys know have my contact information. You know how to get in touch with me. So don't worry about that. And if you want to become a Patreon backer, I've already talked about this whole episode, how easy it is to do all that kind of stuff. Want to remind you, I release my episodes to my backers first before everyone else. You also get behind the scenes content and just all sorts of cool stuff. You can be a backer for as little as $1 a month, get your foot in the door. And then the next episode of Wargaming Recon will be coming your way before you know it. And I'm looking at my thing and I don't have a topic for it yet. So that'll be interesting. But what that means is you need to check the episode guide. You head on over to our website, wargamingrecon.com/episode guide, and we'll have that information there as soon as it's made available. But that'll be episode 156. And I can tell you, though, that episode 156, no matter what, will be coming out on April 25, April 25th, 2016. So you'll get it then. Should be cool. And we'll have some fun stuff happening. And I believe that's all she wrote. So as always, thank you all of you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Wargaming Recon. And I beg your indulgence if I sound a little tired and things are a little out of whack. Like I said, I've been sick. That stomach bug it's awful, awful. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I hope none of you get it. But if you do, you could use the time to listen to Wargaming Recon, right? So no matter how busy you are in your lives, no matter how much wargaming you're going to do, especially if you're going to get it crowdfunded, no matter what, you always have to, you got it, you need to keep on gaming.